Hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgruben, and this course is all about creating characters inside of Adobe Animate. I originally launched this course on Udemy way back in 2019. However, it still contains a lot of useful information and still rates pretty highly on Udemy. I'll be launching one chapter a week, and if you wish to view the course in one shot or gain access to the exercise files, you can always check out the Udemy course, which is linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.
For this video, I'm working off of 18 Chad Vector Animate. Feel free to open up this file. We're now going to build up the mouth, and we'll be using masking similar to how we mask the eyes. First, I need to make a slight adjustment to my head. I feel the nose is a little bit too low now that I'm looking at this before I jump in with the mouth. This is an easy fix. Let's just make sure we are on that head layer. And we want to grab the lasso tool, L on the keyboard. And I'm just going to come in here and draw all the way around the nose like that. Take my selection tool. And we're just going to move this up a little bit like so. About like that. And then we can click off. Now, of course, this leaves a gap with the fill. Not a big deal. Hit I, select the face, and then select that hole, and we can fill it in, and just make sure that there's no other little places that you need to fill in. It looks like there might be one right there. If I zoom in here, you can see there's this little gap. I'm just going to fill that in, and everything is looking fine. Now we're going to construct the mouth, and we're going to start with an open mouth, similar to we have in the reference. So that way, it's easy for us to have all the elements in place, and we can go in and change the mouth however we see fit. So if you want like an O pose, or if you want an ETC pose, all of that can be easily constructed once you have the main mouth template in place. So to begin, let's go in and create a new layer. I can place it right above the eyebrows. Just create that new layer, and we'll name this one Inner Mouth. So now with inner mouth in place, let's come in and draw the inner mouth. We can do this a couple different ways. You can see how the shape of this is set up so that it might be actually easier to create an oval and just bend it the way we want. So let's come over here and grab the oval tool. And for the stroke color, we'll set it to black. For the fill color, I'll come in and grab a dark red, similar to what we have here, or we could eyedropper it if we wish as well. Now, we're just going to come in and draw out an oval, using, of course, the line width and the line size that I've been using up to this point. And I can release. Hit V on the keyboard, and I can come in here and just start to modify some things here. Kind of bring it over like that. And I can bring this down a bit. And we can kind of bring out some things to help with the overall shape. Now, I might at this point find it beneficial to come in and add some points with the pen tool. So let's just locate the pen tool within our list. Hold down and grab the Add Anchor Point tool, or you can use equals if you prefer. And I'm just going to lock everything except the inner mouth. That way I'm not accidentally altering anything else. And I just want to come in here and add some points near the bottom here like so. So kind of like this. And now we can take that sub-selection tool and come in here and just make some tweaks to the shape. Just a little bit. Again, I just want to bring it out a little bit more, kind of like how it is right now. But maybe just a couple more tweaks. Just come in here and bring out some of these shapes. There we are. And again, we can modify the Beziers and do what we need to do to get this to go how we want it. So something like that should be fine. If I click off, it looks like that. And I think that's looking pretty good. So let's come back and make sure we are looking at the inner mouth here. And let's also come in and make sure we fill in with our color, so that way we have that as well. One more thing I might do is just double click on the mouth and raise it up a little bit more so that it's closer to the nose. And looking at this, I can maybe bring the dip over a little bit so that it dips down closer to the nose and then it kind of goes up like so. And again, we can go in and keep tweaking the shape if we wish to make it look a little bit more natural. So now, once we have that and everything is to your liking, we can start to add in the inner details of the mouth. So let's create a new layer. I'll name this one bottom teeth or b.teeth if you wish. And we can take the rectangle tool this time. For the fill color, we'll select white, leave everything as is, and I'm just going to come in and add in those teeth. And again, we can eyeball the reference just to kind of get something similar in terms of shape. And I'm just going to come in here and modify this so that we get it how we want it. So now we can do the top teeth. Let's just create a new layer. I'll just do t.teeth for top teeth using the rectangle. Once again, just come in and add in our teeth just like that. Now, if we want to replicate what we have here for the top teeth, where we have that little point, we can come over and grab the pen tool. And let's just first use a sub-selection tool and click on this to see what's going on. We could add 2 points right there to help with that bend. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to add one there, and I'll add one there. Come back to the sub-selection tool, making sure we can see those points. I'm just going to grab that one and bring it up. And we can do this one and bring it over like so. Kind of bring that one over. Maybe that one over a little bit too. And of course, this point is way too big, so we just want to come in and modify that so that's not as dominant as it was when I started, just like that. So I think that shape right there should be a little bit more in line. Now we can add the tongue, and then we'll mask it to see how it all looks. We'll put the tongue below the back teeth, so we'll create a new layer, name it tongue. And I'm just going to use the oval tool again. This time, let's eyedropper the tongue, if I can. I'm not getting quite the color I want. Let me come over. It's probably because I have this locked, actually. So we have color reference right here. That's the one, right? Yes. So I'm going to unlock that and try it again. We'll just grab that color. There we go. So now we have the tongue color. We can come back here to the tongue layer. I'm just going to lock the reference again to make sure we don't accidentally modify that. And I'm also going to hide the teeth just to have an easier time with this. Just come in here and we're going to add in the tongue. Just like that. I can grab the selection tool and just start to modify some things here. About like that should be looking pretty good. And then I'm just going to use the line tool here and come in, kind of add a line like that. Go back to my selection tool and I'm going to turn magnetics on so I can snap that tongue line to where it needs to be. Turn that off so I can then easily bend this and then modify it a little bit more. So we kind of have something like that. And again, I could go in here and perhaps add some points just to have a little bit more flexibility. And then using the sub-selection tool, that should allow me to come in here and just alter things slightly just to get them how I want them. There we are. That shouldn't be too bad. Just delete that little point right there. And now we want to duplicate the inner mouth. So right click, duplicate. We're going to bring it above the top teeth. And we're just going to name this one mouth and right click and choose to mask it. And then the back teeth along with the tongue and inner mouth are all going to fall under that as well. Once you have that set, we can make sure we have everything that we need revealed and locked, because once again, we won't be able to see how this is going to look until we lock it. Besides needing an outline for the mouth, there's just a couple more things I want to do here. I just want to lower the bottom teeth to start. So come back here to those bottom teeth. We can hide the inner mouth just for a moment here, so that way we can see what we're doing. Double click on those teeth. Let's just shrink them down. And before we shrink them down, let's grab that anchor point and move it down to the bottom of the selection area, so that way when we resize, it goes down and we don't have to worry about repositioning once we resize. So I'm just going to move that down a little bit and relock. And I think that's looking a little bit better in terms of height. I might just kick it up a little bit more like that and lock. And I think that's actually looking pretty good. The only thing I'm going to do here is just move this so that we don't see the boundary on the bottom. There we go. And for those teeth, let me just unlock once again, hide the inner mouth and the mask so I can see the thing fully. I'm just going to grab this and bend the teeth down a little bit like so. Now let me get a full grasp of this again. I think the top teeth are actually pretty good in terms of height. I might just do a little bit of bending with them. So let's just come in and we can bend them down just a little bit like that. We don't have to do a whole lot. And then the tongue needs a little bit of work. I'm just going to try to come in here and just modify it so that it's a little bit more appealing. Kind of kick it back like that. And for this line, I'm actually going to change the width profile to, let's try this one, something like that. If I come in here and reveal and lock this all again, we can see it's looking like that. And that's not too bad. The tongue could use a little bit more work, I feel. So let me just, once again, you do a lot of locking and hiding and revealing when you're working with masks in Animate. Just a fair warning if you haven't seen that by now, or, caught on to the whole workflow of this. But we're just going to move this back, and I'm just going to try to scale the tongue back a little bit like so. It's not looking too bad, I don't think. So if I come back, reveal and lock, that's looking pretty good. And I just need to work with the bottom teeth a little bit more. It looks like we can kind of see the boundary compared to the bottom of the mouth. So not a big deal. Once again, just go in and resize. This time we're just going to push it down like so. Now if I lock, you can see the boundary is gone and things are looking a little bit better. The final thing I'm going to do is create an outline for the mouth. And we can do this by either duplicating the inner mouth or the mask itself. I'll just do the inner mouth really quick. So right click, duplicate, bring it all the way to the top. We're just going to double click on this and name it outline, hit enter. Make sure we have everything locked except here for this fill. Let me just make sure we can actually see this. So we want to make sure we're clicking on the fill for the outline for the mouth and then just delete it. And then we can reveal and lock everything once again to bring back the character. And we can now see how this is all looking. Everything's masked. We have all the parts of the mouth in place. And of course, the tongue looks a little bit different compared to the original, but I think it's okay. So with that, we now have the mouth template in place. I'm going to pause here, and up next, we'll take a look at how we can build up some various mouth poses using this template. For this video, we're working off of 19 Chad Vector Animate. Feel free to open up this file. We're now going to jump in and start molding the mouth. The first thing we'll do is import a reference for the mouth poses. So we can click on Hands Reference and make a new layer and name this one Mouth Reference, and then hit Enter. Once you have that, on that layer, we can use Control-R or Command-R if you're on Mac to import, and we can locate within your exercise files the phonemes.png image. Once you've located that, we can choose to open, and it will be placed on the stage. Really quick here, I'm going to Alt-click on Mouth Reference to hide everything except for that image, and just zoom out so we can see what we have to work with here. I can just move this over so you can get a better idea. And we have 8 phonemes on this chart. Now you can add more if you wish. You could add in between poses. You could add different emotions, so you could have a set of serious mouths and then a set of happy mouths, however you want to approach it. Here we're just going to construct 8 simple poses, so that way you get an idea of how all this works. Here you can see we have everything from closed to the teeth to the E sound, A sound, which is the sound we created as the template, and then you have LTH, O, QUW, and then FV. We're going to go in and add 8 frames for the 8 poses, and we'll place each pose on a different frame, and we could go in and do this differently, such as adding each phoneme to a layer, but the way I set up the animation in the next course, it's going to make more sense for us to add these to 8 different frames. So with that, we're going to want to come in here to the timeline and add in those 8 frames. Let me just unlock here everything, so that way I can click on the timeline and add my frames, and I want to jump then to frame 8. So right here is frame 8. On the list, I'm on Mouth Reference. Clicking on frame 8, I can scroll all the way down to the bottom, hold in Shift, and click on frame 8 for Sketch. With all of those frames selected, hit F5 to create the frames so that they extend the timeline all the way out to 8. Now, we want to establish a keyframe for the open mouth pose that we already created for this character. And as you can see, number 4 is AI, and I'm just going to stick with that. So that's the pose that we made for the template. So coming back here now to the mouth mask, I'm going to just go to frame 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also verify by looking at this number right up here. It'll tell you the current frame. But once we have that selected, I want to come in now, hold in Shift, and then click on all of the mouth layers, just like that, and then hit F6. This will create a keyframe within the frames, and a keyframe is simply a change on the timeline. So when we get to this point, it's going to change to the AI pose, which we already have laid down. So there's no need to go back and redo it. So with that, we can now begin by coming back here to frame 1, and let's reveal everything once again, just so we can get a good idea of what we are doing here, except I can hide the references for the pivot guides as well as the hands, and let's come down here and hide the sketch and the color reference as well. Also, grab the mouth reference, and we can just move this over to the side. We're going to start with closed anyway, so we can use that as a guide right there. Now there are a few ways you could go about adjusting the mouth to make it closed. For instance, we could grab the free transform tool here and come in and we could squish this up and then start to modify that way. However, I'm going to just do some reconstruction here really quick. I want the top portion of the mouth for the smile line, and we always have the mouth drop. The jaw drops. We never have the line go up. So with that in mind, I'm just going to grab the eraser tool here, which is right down there, making sure that we have the erase set to normal. I can come in and just start to erase from right here and just kind of go down like that. let's make sure before we do this that we lock everything that's not pertaining to the mouth. So that way we're not accidentally altering the head. Let's try that again. Let's come in here now. We can erase like that. And just come down and we'll erase like this. And just kind of clear it out like that. And then grab the selection tool and come in here and just kind of go like this. And then from there, we can make any adjustments we feel are needed. Like perhaps we can bring this down just a little bit like that. And that's looking a little bit better and pretty convincing that it could be a closed mouth. So now if we go from 1 and then we go to 4, you can see that we have that difference now taking shape. Let's zoom back out, take a look at our next phoneme. Make sure we bring back that mouth reference really quick here, if we don't already have it. And the next pose is going to be the ETC pose, or the teeth pose. And so we can get going on this. I'm just going to move it a little bit closer. That way we can reference it if needed, but I'm just going to hide it for right now, and then we can come back here and take a look at the next step. So frame 2 is going to be the ETC pose. And we can start with the AI pose and basically work up from there. So let's come over here. Again, we're just going to work with the inner mouth. We'll figure out the other layers here after we get the inner mouth done. Clicking on inner mouth, we already have an open pose where we could easily put the teeth in and create that closed pose. So on frame 4, I'm going to hold an Alt and click and drag over to 2. That will duplicate the frame and bring it over to where I want it. So on 2 now, we have an open mouth again. I'm just going to hit Q to bring up the free transform ability, and then we can reposition that anchor point so that way we can resize and it will go to the line. And I'm just going to come in here and just squish this up a little bit. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. So that way we can get the teeth established when the time comes. So now, zooming back out, I'm just going to look at the mouth reference again. The next pose after that is the E pose. And the E pose can actually be similar to the ETC pose, except we're just not going to have the teeth visible. So with that in mind, if we jump over here to frame 3, it's referencing frame 2 already. So we can just use that as a jumping off point for this. So on frame 3, let's hit F6 to lock down that keyframe. And I'm just going to come in and expand this a little bit, making sure that we have the anchor point set where we need it. I'm just going to drop it a little bit like that. And coming back here to 2 really quick, I just want to grab the mouth and just bring it in a little bit like so. There's some variety there. So we have this, and then you're going to have this for the E pose, and maybe also for the E pose, just a little bit less open, like that. So there we go. We have closed, we have the teeth pose, we have the E pose, and then we have the AI pose. For the next pose, where we are looking at LTH, it's going to have a very similar shape to AI. The tongue is really the only thing that changes. So if we jump over here to our mouth poses, frame 4 is where we have the AI pose. Frame 5 is where we'll have the LTH pose. So let's hit F6 on frame 5 to insert that keyframe. Just going to zoom in here really quick and make a slight adjustment to the opening of the mouth. So that way it's just a little bit different. Come in like this, and we can just alter it again slightly. Just so that way we have a little bit of a difference. So it goes kind of like this to that, which I think works. And then if we look at the next pose here on the list, we have LTH, and then we have O. And so the O pose is just going to be more of a rounded mouth. So let's jump over here to frame 6, and then we can hit F6 to create a keyframe. I'll hide the mouth references here for a moment. Jump back over here so that way we can zoom in. So with that keyframe in place, I can come in here and now delete that mouth. So we have a blank frame on 6. To make this a little bit easier to draw out the O pose, I'm just going to come over here and move my timeline forward so I can see my onion skin options. And I want to click on onion skin so that way I can see the previous frame to what I'm doing. I'm going to grab this indicator and just bring it so that it starts at 5 and it can go to 6, just like that. So now if I bring this back, we can see what the opening originally looked like. And that will allow us to shape up the O pose so that it's not quite out of line with the original design. So let's just grab the oval tool, and all the colors in the line is set to what we need. And I'm just going to come in here and draw out this O pose just like this. Grab the shape, and I can move it down just a little bit so that the top of it is matching the top of the original, and we're not making it too large. So as you can see, it looks like it works pretty well within the boundaries of what we had before. And with that, I'm just going to bring this over a little bit so that way now we can have that O pose just like that. And the next is the QUW pose, I believe. So if we bring back the guide again really quick, you can see right down there is QUW. It's essentially us pressing our lips together. And so let's go to frame 7 of the mouth opening and then hit F6 to create that keyframe. And I'm just going to come in here and make some adjustments to the shape of this. Not too much, but I'm just going to kind of make it look like the lips are pressing together just a little bit, kind of like that, with how this is designed. There we are. And then I'm just going to shrink it up a little bit. More than what we had for the O, and then just bring it out a little bit more like so. Maybe up a little bit like that. Maybe more like this. There we go. So now you have the QUW pose. So now let's take a look at the final one, which is FV. I think it's going to be easier to come in and grab an existing pose for the FV pose. And if we page through here, we can get an idea of what we can grab here. And right now I'm going to remove the onion skinning because I don't really have a need for it anymore. So I'm just going to come back here to the onion skin option and click off, so that way we don't have that and we can just go back to normal view. So for the FV pose, I'm going to come in and let's grab frame 2's mouth pose and alt and drag it over to frame 8. Just going to hide my reference really quick so I don't have all that stuff in the way. And on frame 8, we're doing the FV pose. So I can actually quickly just take a look at the top teeth if I wanted to, just by revealing that on the timeline. And then with the inner mouth, we're just going to move it so that the lip is touching the bottom of the top teeth. And I want to make sure that the lip is kind of lined up with the nose, just like that. And I can come in here and make any modifications then to the shape needed, so that way it doesn't look too out of line. And I know right now it's kind of hard to tell without the masking in place, but we're going to get to that here next. So now we have the main shapes down. We can now come back here to the start and begin the process of moving the tongue and teeth around on each frame to ensure that everything is where it needs to be. And before we do that, let's make sure that we have keyframes on every single point here. Easiest way to do that is to click on frame 2 for tongue, hold and shift, and then click on frame 8 for mouth, and then hit F6 to establish your keyframes. So now we're going to start here, and you can, if you wish, reveal everything and lock it, so that way we can get an idea of what this is going to look like. So now that we've shaped the outline, you'll notice that when we lock everything, we're having this issue where the mouth is disappearing. Well, the closed mouth is a little bit special, so we're just going to keep this as is, but then go in and just remove some of the masking here, since we really don't need it. And we can also remove the teeth and the tongue from this frame as well. So with this, I can start and let's just remove the mask there, click on top teeth, we can remove that. Bottom teeth, remove that. And then tongue, remove that. Now if we come back and lock everything, you can see that it's still visible and it works. And we can move on now to the next point, which is going to be frame 2, and we can continue to mold this up. So here, once again, we need to unlock all of this, and we're going to grab the inner mouth, Alt and drag, and bring it over here to the mouth on top, and then Alt and drag to outline. Except for the outline, I'm going to Alt and click on the visibility for outline, just come in here, click on the fill and remove it. And then we can bring everything back and lock it. And you can see now that it looks like this. There we go. So now if we go back here to 1, it's closed. We go to here, we're doing the E sound, I believe. We can also come in now and grab the bottom teeth because they're a little bit lower. And I'm just going to raise them up just a little bit like that. Lock this and see what it looks like. It's not looking too bad. We could also come in and grab the tongue and just maybe raise it up a couple of strokes, or maybe just one, just to see. And that's looking pretty good. So there we are. We now have that pose locked down. So right now it's looking like the E pose, but we want this to be the ETC pose. So very easily now we can just come in and grab the teeth. We'll do the back and front teeth. And I'm just going to hide the inner mouth here for a moment along with the mouth. That way I can just see the outline. And I want the teeth to touch. So just come down like that. Back teeth can come up and lock into place like so. And if needed, you can see that there's a little bit of a gap for those teeth. Not a big deal. We'll just come in here and we can do a quick little free transform. It's going to move that anchor point up to the top and then bring it down like so. So now if we come back and lock everything in place, reveal, we can see now the ETC pose has been set up. So next, if we jump to the E pose, we just need to come in now and do a little bit of modification with the outlines as we have been. So let's just unlock everything here. On frame 3, I'm going to Alt and drag up to mouth. Also Alt and drag up to outline. Alt click on the visibility for outline and then just click on its fill and remove. And then we can bring this back here just by revealing like so. I can also reveal the head here just to get an idea. And again, this is going to be the E pose. So if we lock all this, we can see what it currently looks like. Not bad, but we do need the bottom teeth in shot. So I'm just going to bring those up slightly until we can get them a little bit into the shot. And as you can see now, it's looking pretty good. If you wanted to, you could also come in and maybe move the tongue up just a little bit as well. Lock that, and you can see now we have the tongue in place. Now we can move over to the next phoneme, which again, if I take a look at my guide here, just did E, we did the closed, now it's AI. And so the AI is just what it needs to be. Frame 4 is good because that's the original one, and that was AI. So now we can move to 5. On 5, we have the LTH pose, which is essentially the AI pose, but the tongue is a little bit different. So first, let's just come down and make sure we have everything consistent. I'm going to Alt and drag over to mouth, as well as outline from the inner mouth on frame 5. Alt click on the visibility for outline and just come in and remove the fill. And then we can come back, making sure we have everything revealed. And we also want to make sure we hide the mouth here so we can see the tongue, just that main layer. And coming in, zooming in, we're going to grab the tongue and modify it. So making sure we are on frame 5 for the tongue, I'm just going to grab my selection tool. I can also lock the teeth so that way I'm not accidentally modifying everything, just the tongue. So I'm locking everything except for the mouth, which is hidden, and then the outline teeth and inner mouth are locked. The tongue is not. And I can just come in here and just modify this. We want the tongue to touch the top of the teeth. I might remove this line right here since it's a little bit different now. Just kind of come in here and again, you can adjust this how you want it, if you want it to look thinner, however you think it should look. Now I'm just going to reveal everything and we can see that this is what it currently looks like. The bottom teeth could go up a little bit. So let's just unlock those and move them up a little bit and lock back in, and we can see now this is what it looks like. So we are getting close. If we reveal the mouth reference again, take a look here. We had AI for 4, 5 is LTH, 6 is the O. So let's move over to 6. Now we're going to do the same thing as we have been. Let's unlock all these layers, starting with the inner mouth, Alt and drag up to the mouth mask, Alt and drag up to outline, and then we want to make sure that the outline doesn't have any fill. So just Alt click on outline, click on the fill, and then delete, and then we can bring everything back just like that. And let's lock it to see what this looks like. And it's not too bad. What I might want to do though is just raise the bottom teeth up a little bit, maybe like that. And the tongue needs to come forward as well. So I'm just going to unlock that just a little bit. It doesn't have to be much. And then we can relock it. And we now have something that looks like that, which is looking pretty good. Then we go to the QUW pose. Again, same thing. We're just going to Alt and drag up to mouth, Alt and drag up to outline. Make sure we Alt click on visibility for the outline and then remove the fill so that way it is in fact just an outline. Bring everything back. We can lock everything to see what this looks like. The bottom teeth need to come in a little bit more. So something like that. The tongue could also make an appearance. Just come in here and just a little bit. It doesn't have to be much. So now if we lock it, you can see it looks something like that. And then we have the final pose, which is the FV pose. So we're just going to do the same thing. Copy this frame up to mouth as well as outline. Alt click on outline. Make sure it's just the outline. And then we can lock everything and reveal it. And it's looking like this currently, which isn't maybe the best looking. So we can just come in and make a couple modifications. The tongue can go up a little bit. And for the bottom teeth, you're probably not going to see them because of the way the mouth is contorting to have that FV sound come in. But we could try seeing what it looks like. If we want to just bring it up a little bit, take a look. Yep, that's too much. That almost looks like an ETC pose. So maybe kick it down a little bit, try it again. And that's a little bit better. You can kind of see the teeth there just a little bit to help with the way this is all looking. So there we go. We now have all of the mouth poses in place. And again, it might not seem like much right now, but eventually we'll be able to use the frame picker in the animation course to lip sync if we wish. And just to double check, I'm going to bring everything back to visibility here, making sure that we hide the references so that way they don't get in the way. And if I come back here to frame 1, and if you use the comma and period keys, you can page forward and back on the timeline. You can see here we have frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the mouths are all in line. I could do a little bit of work here and there, but I think for the most part, it's going to work. So there we go. We now have the mouth poses in place. We'll pause here and up next, move on to creating additional hand poses. For this video, we're working off of 20 Chad Vector Animate. And we're going to come in and start drawing up additional hand poses for each arm. So let's get started. I'm going to create different layers for these poses. We'll start with the front hand. And for the front hand, I'm actually going to come in and double click and rename this to hand closed or fist or front fist, I should say. So that way we know exactly what this is. Because if we come down here and we take a look at this, you'll see that it is in fact a fist. So with that, we're going to create a new layer, and we can name this one f.open. And now this is going to be an open hand. We can use the references as a guide, but I'm just going to move in and just sort of do it freehand and see what we can come up with. So with open hand selected, I can also come down here to the fist and just choose to outline it by clicking on that orange icon. You can see now we can see the outline of this, which will help us when designing. And still on front open, I'm going to hit N to bring up the line tool. You can use whatever tool you wish. And we'll start by coming in and drawing out some lines like so. It would also be advisable, at least to start, to put on magnetics so that way everything is connected. So we can start with this. And let me do that one more time. So this is going to be an open hand, so we can bring this down a little bit like that. And here is the thumb. So we're just going to create, again, a boxy looking thumb. We can adjust this once we decide to go in and mold. We'll come down like so, modify, and draw. So there's the index finger. Next, we can do the middle finger. And then we have the last two. So just come in, maybe about like that. And then we have the pinky finger, which is going to be the smallest. There we go. Now, one thing I want to do as well is come in, let's hide the front arm. We can see we have that oval there from before for the pivot point. And really quick, let's just grab the oval tool and turn fills off. Still on front open, I'm just going to come in here, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but just get it pretty close so we can kind of connect it like that. And make sure that we bring this line up as well and connect it to the oval. So that way, when it comes time to pivot, we'll have a more natural point to do it from. And then it's just a matter of coming in and altering the way the hands look here. So here is our thumb. Let's come in and modify that. Might remove that line for right now and add it later just because I don't like the way the style is appearing for that. And then you have your fingers here. So we're just going to come in here, and of course you can design your hands in so many different ways. I'm just doing a really quick job here just to kind of give you an idea of what this can all look like. So there's the pinky. Just going to bring it out like that. And there we are. And again, you could spend lots of time on this and modify it exactly how you want it, but that should work for what we need. So let's do the pointed finger next. I'm actually going to bring back the visibility on this and then just hide it, that fist. And this time outline what we did for the open hand. Create then a new layer. We can name this one f.point or f.point, however you wish to label it. And this time we're just going to do basically the same thing as the open hand, except we want the index finger and the thumb to be up and the other three hands to be closed in for the point. So let's begin. Once again, actually, before we start drawing out the main hand, I might just come in here really quick and add in that oval. Kind of gives us something to work off of anyway. Just come in and add it like that. So that way, again, it's close to the other ones, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Just as long as the sleeve is hiding it, we should be fine. So now I'm going to come in and, again, do something similar to how I set up the open hand here, at least for the initial steps. I'm just going to extend the index finger out a little bit more than I originally had it here, just to emphasize it a bit. And then from here, we can basically come in and half the size of these, since it's going to be knuckled in, basically. So go up like that. and then we can round it off like so. Grab the selection tool, and we can come in here and start to modify things to our liking. Just gonna bring this out a bit and then round it off. And bring some of this stuff down. There we go. And there we are. So we can kind of go like that. And we have some of the line work here that looks a little bit off. So I can come in here and make some modifications to the profiles, or I can turn it off however I wish to do it. But that should now work. And again, it's not perfect. I could probably spend more time on this, but I think it works for what we need. So let's zoom out just like that. So now, when it comes to the other arm, if I come up here and we reveal the hands, you'll see that we do have some differences, but they're not as drastic as they were with the fist. Basically, we can just change some of the line work around and we can still make it work, which means we can probably duplicate the hands we just created to help with the process. So let's come down here. We have F point and F open. I'm just going to select both of these, right click, and then choose to duplicate layers. And then we're going to bring these below to where we have b.hand. Let's double click on b.hand and rename it to back fist, b.open for this one, and then b.point for the third. So we have the fist. We know what that looks like. If we unlock it, you can see it's right there. So now we're going to go to b.open. Just make sure we reveal this so it's not outlined. And I'm going to grab it and just move it like this. Hit Q for free transform. Make sure we put the anchor point, and I can unlock this with snap to objects close to the middle of that pivot point I established. And then just rotate it like that to kind of get it into place. And then just come in and put it in like so. Now there will be some modifications I make to make it look a little bit different, but let's just get it into position for right now. And the same for the pointed back hand. Let's bring that over. Once again, we can set up the pivot point in the middle of that rotation, just like that, right there. And then we can rotate it like this. And get it in like so. So now if we look at the differences between these, the fist we don't have to worry about because we already covered that. In fact, I'm just going to hide that. And we can hide the back fist or the front fist as well, just to make sure that it's not in our way when we're trying to compare here. So next would be then b.open. So let me just hide the sketch as well. With b.open, you can see between these two, there isn't a whole lot of changes that really need to be made. What we could do though is come in and maybe just add a little bit of line work to the hand just to differentiate it a little bit from the front of the hand. So we could just zoom in, get our line tool here, come in and you could add, for instance, some palm lines like that. Perhaps we extend the line work for the thumb out a little bit as well. And we can come in here and make some modifications. Just maybe lower that a little bit. There we are. Same with this one. We can come in and just lower the line width on that. And we could also come in and maybe just add some line work between the fingers like so. And actually looking at this, I might kick down the thumb a little bit more. There we are, something like that. And then you have the pointed finger, which is going to be a little bit more work, but not too much. Just make sure we get it revealed so we can see it. And essentially what I want to do here is close off the knuckles. We'll just grab the line tool and make sure we're on point here. And we can also start with the selection tool as well. I'm actually going to lower this a little bit, kind of lower it down with it. I'm just going to do the same like that. And make sure we have snap to objects turned on. I'm just going to come in here and do something like this. Then hit the V key and come in and start rounding off these knuckles just like that. And I might bring the thumb down a little bit. We take a look at the original here. I might actually want to bring the thumb more like this. Maybe more like that would be better. Let's bring that up a little bit. Okay, so now we have that in place. And again, you could go in and continue to modify that, such as if we look at this, we could add really quick, maybe a little palm line here. We can even kind of have it extend out like that a little bit. It's kind of a bend. And there we are. That's looking pretty good. And zoom out. And we now have the pointed finger established. The only thing I might do is just rotate it so that it's a little bit more in line with the sleeve. Something like that should be good. And then the final step is just to go through and make sure we fill all of this in. Let's come back here to the fist. It's going to hide some of this other stuff really quick. There we are. Use the eyedropper to select the fist color. And then we can start to reveal some of the others here. So for the open hand, I can just come in here and let's make sure we click lock fill so it's turned off. And we also want to make sure we unlock that layer before we attempt to fill. And if you're having issues, you might have to come in here and take a look at your lines to make sure everything is matching. And you might also need to just come in and adjust the way the fill is working. Just like that. I was able to come in here and modify the fill, and now we're able to work with the hand. And the same goes for any of the hands that you have made. So I'm just going to go through really quick here and make sure we have everything locked down. I believe I just need to do the point. So there we go. Make sure we're on that layer. Just fill everything in. And we can go back to the front hands as well. So we have front point currently filled in. Come here to the open hand. It looks like we need to fill that in really quick. There we are. And then the fist should be good to go. Okay, so now if we just reveal everything here, of course hiding our references that we don't really need at the moment, you can see that we now have hands set up. They're all visible when we have them all turned on, but that's something that we're going to work with when we get to the animation stage, so that way you can choose to show which hands you want at any given time. But with those additional hand poses in place, you could go in and do some shading and highlighting if you wish, get them polished up, and get them ready for animation. So with that, we're going to pause here, and up next, examine how we could create 2 additional head poses for this character. For this video, we're working off of 21 Chad Vector Animate. Feel free to open up this file. I'm now going to take a moment and discuss how you could set up additional head poses if you wish to go further with this design. So, the first thing I would advise that you do, if you do plan to design additional head poses, is create a new layer for the head poses reference that I have included with this course. So we're just going to name this one head poses reference. That way you have this, and if I could actually write the whole thing out, that would be nice. So let's try that again. Reference. There we go. So now you have the head poses reference right there. What I want to do then is use Command R or Control R, depending on which operating system you're on, to import to stage. And you'll find in your exercise files that we have head phases reference. We're just going to double click on this to bring it in. And here, it's just an image that showcases how you could set up these different head poses. You can see if I just place this over the top, it actually looks pretty good just by doing that. So what would end up happening here is if I was to show you this process of designing these characters in different head phases, we would basically, double the length of the course because I would go through and basically redo all of the head steps. You would do the hair, you would do the head itself, the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. You would do different mouth poses for each phase of the head. So the front view would look a little bit different than the side view. You're going to have less mouth exposed with the side view. Since you're seeing less, you're going to have more exposed when you're looking at it with the front view. And there might be cases where you don't need every single mouth pose or whatever for every pose. Maybe the pose is just like an in-between to get to your next major pose. And that's always something you can play around with. And so I wanted to include these phases because in my animation course on Animate CC, we do invoke some head turns just to help with the overall animation process. And again, I'm not going to go through and actually design this for this course because honestly, I feel like it's just retreading over and over and over. You've gotten the basics down. You know how to mask, you know how to draw, you know how to use magnetics, you know how to change your line types, you know how to fill, you know how to shade and highlight, and it's all there. You just got to basically just do a different angle and do it all over again. So I just wanted to point out that you can do this. I'm not going to go through the process because, again, I feel it's just kind of pointless to retread all those steps when it's essentially the same thing, but we're just drawing it a slightly different way. But please use this reference if you do want to add more head phases to your character. I think you'll find it useful. You can use this as a template to design your own characters. You can sketch based off of this and get your head phases down and then ink it all and get it set up for your animated production. And again, you don't have to do head turns. It's just sort of an optional thing I wanted to throw in here and to make you aware that, yes, you can do head turns. It's essentially just the same process. You're just going to be redrawing everything and getting it all on their own layers. So with that said, be sure to take a look at this reference if you want to go further. I'm going to pause here, and up next, we can move over to the polishing phase.